Everyone knows I'm not in support of this marriage, and I can see the future. This union will not produce children. I pray she doesn't disappoint this family, because if she does, if this womb proves fruitless to our bloodline as everything else about her, then my son will live regretting his actions. To Soo-hyun, may his wife prove me wrong.
My wife's name is Bibi, and I will never regret marrying the woman I love. Anyone who questions her place in this family questions mine. To my wife.
For the first time that evening, Jun Hyo-ju's smile falters. Around the ballroom, uneasy glances ripple through the guests. No one expected the heir to challenge his mother in public. He raised his glass. To my wife. Everyone raised their glasses and drank hurriedly. Soo-hyun sat back down. Under the table, Bibi's hand found his. She pressed it once, firmly, and let go. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "Yes, I did," he said. A photographer took a picture of them. Bibi turned toward her husband and held the smile she had worn all day, bright and certain. The smile of a woman who had not just been told in front of 300 people that she was barren on her wedding day. Soo-hyun looked at her for a long moment. "We're going to be fine," he said. She kept the smile exactly where it was. "I know," she said. Across the hall, 3 tables from the back, a woman in pale gold watched the whole exchange and turned her champagne glass slowly in her hand. She did not clap when Soo-hyun raised his toast. She did not look away from Bibi's face. She had waited this long. She could wait a little longer. Hey lovers of Lara's Afro-Korean stories. Today, I bring you something unique. A story where even love might not be enough when there's a mother-in-law working to break her son's marriage. Before we go ahead, please like, subscribe, and tell me what kind of mother-in-law you would be at the end of this story. Let's dive into it. The first year of their marriage, they did not worry. Soo-hyun told her these things took time. Bibi agreed. They were busy building a life together, so it was paramount that they understood each other. Since they had gotten married in less than 3 months of meeting, they spent their first year learning more about each other. Their love for each other grew stronger each day, and they lived happily. Bibi learnt more about Soo-hyun's family business and the kind of meetings he had. By the second year, they started trying properly. Bibi tracked everything, her ovulation cycle, timing, and even the best position to get pregnant. She kept a small notebook in the bedside drawer that Soo-hyun never opened because he understood without being told that it was not for him. They visited a doctor in a private clinic on the quiet side of Gangnam. Everything came back normal. They were a perfectly healthy couple. The doctor advised them to be patient. They were patient. The third year, the notebook disappeared from the drawer. Soo-hyun noticed, but did not ask. Bibi began spending longer hours at the window of their apartment, staring into space and looking at children rushing to school with their parents. He would find her there at odd hours and stand beside her silently. Bibi would lean into him slightly, just slightly, and neither of them would say the word that had started to fill every room they stood in. In the 4th year, Hyo-ju began calling more frequently. The calls were never about the subject directly, though. They were about family gatherings, about organization events, about whether Bibi had settled into Seoul properly, about whether the apartment suited them. She asked after their health in a way that was not really about health. Soo-hyun kept the calls short. Bibi watched him hang up each time and watched him put the phone face down on the counter, and she understood what the calls were really about because she was not a woman who needed things explained to her. She just could not fix it. By the 5th year, they had grown a bit apart. The once bubbling home of a young couple had become quiet. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of 2 people carrying something too heavy to speak. Soo-hyun came home later. Not every night, and never without calling, but later. Bibi stopped asking him how the meetings went, because his answers had started to sound like a man reporting from somewhere far away. They still touched. They still reached for each other in the dark, but there was a new carefulness to it, the way you handle something you are afraid of breaking, that had not been there before. One evening, Soo-hyun came home to find Bibi at the kitchen table with a cup of tea gone cold in front of her. He sat across from her. He did not take off his jacket. "Talk to me," he said. She looked at him, at the grey that had started threading through his hair, at the temples that she had not noticed arriving, at the line between his brows that had not been there on their wedding day. "I don't know what to say," she said. "Neither do I." He picked up her cold cup and took it to the microwave. "But sit here with me anyway." She sat. He brought the cup back. They sat in the kitchen until past midnight, without saying anything of consequence, and it was the closest they had felt to each other in months. It was not enough to hold back what was coming, though. Few days later, Soo-hyun went for a meeting. The moment he came home from it, Bibi knew something had happened. She didn't ask, but waited for him to speak to her. She had learned how to wait for him. He poured 2 glasses of water, set one in front of her, and sat down. "The council met today," he said. "I know," she said. He had told her that morning. They raised the matter of succession. He looked at the glass in his hand, formally, with reasons and all. Bibi said nothing. Kang and Lim presented a motion. His jaw tightened briefly. They argued that an organization without a confirmed heir creates structural vulnerability, that in our line of work, uncertainty at the top invites challenges from outside. He set the glass down. "They proposed that I consider alternative arrangements." The kitchen was very quiet. "What kind of alternative arrangements?" Bibi said. Soo-hyun looked at her directly. "The kind that I refused before they finished the sentence." She held his gaze. "Soo-hyun, I refused," he said again. "I want you to be clear about that." "I am clear." She turned the glass in her hand. "But they will raise it again." "They will." "And the time after that?" "Yes." She set the glass down and stood up and went to the window. The city below moved the way it always moved, indifferent and bright. She pressed 2 fingers to the glass and felt the cold come through. "How long before refusing costs you more than you can afford?" she said. It was not quite a question. Soo-hyun came to stand behind her. He did not touch her. He looked at the city over her shoulder. "That is not a calculation I am making," he said. "You should be," she said. "Bibi, I'm not saying it for my sake," she turned around. "I'm saying it because you have a legacy. You have built a big empire over the years, and I will not be the reason it falls." He looked at her for a long moment. A shadow moved across his face that she could not explain. "Go to bed," he said. "I'll be there shortly." Bibi didn't argue and left. Soo-hyun stood at the window alone for a long time after. In a house across the city, Hyo-ju sat in her sitting room with a cup of green tea and a phone in her hand. She had heard about the council meeting within the hour. Her contact inside the organization was reliable and discreet. She set the phone down and finished her tea. The charm was still in place. She had checked 3 months ago, hidden behind the panel in the hallway of their apartment, folded in its cloth, doing what it was written to do. She had been patient. She had given it 5 years. Soon, she told herself, soon the organization's pressure would do the rest of the work for her. Soon Soo-hyun would have no choice but to see what she had known from the beginning, that some seeds simply could not grow in foreign soil. Soon, it was at the Jun organization's annual dinner. 80 people stood in a private dining room in one of Seoul's oldest hotels, the kind of event where the food was secondary and the seating arrangements were political, and every conversation happening on the surface had 3 more conversations running underneath it. Bibi wore a deep purple gown that caught the eyes of every guest. She sat beside Soo-hyun and smiled at the right moments, speaking when spoken to, and did not let a single face in that room see anything she did not intend. It was Councilman Lim's wife who started it. A small woman with expensive jewelry and a voice she never quite lowered enough. 5 years, she said to the woman beside her, not quietly enough. 5 years and nothing. I told my husband it was always going to be this way. The woman beside her murmured something. It's not about love. Lim's wife picked up her chopsticks. Love doesn't build a dynasty. If she cannot give him a son, then what exactly is she for? He should have married Mireille when he had the chance. At least then we would know the bloodline was sound. 2 seats away, Bibi's posture did not change. 1 seat away, Soo-hyun's hand found his glass. But it was the man 3 seats down, a senior lieutenant named Bak, who had been drinking since before dinner was served, who said the part that crossed the line. Maybe it's not her fault, Bak said, loudly enough for the nearest 4 tables to hear. Maybe the problem isn't the soil. Maybe the seed is the problem. The table went silent. He laughed at his own words drunkenly and carelessly, totally unaware of what he had just walked into. Soo-hyun set his glass down. He did not raise his voice. He did not stand. He turned his head slowly toward Beck and looked at him with the particular quality of stillness that the people in this room knew to take very seriously. Say that again, Soo-hyun said. Bakek's laugh died midway through. I was only... Say it again, Soo-hyun said. Finish the sentence. Nobody at the table moved. Bak opened his mouth and closed it. The alcohol was losing its courage rapidly. Soo-hyun stood up. He straightened his jacket. He looked at the room. This dinner is over for us, he said. He looked at Bibi and extended his hand. She took it and stood up. She nodded once to the table, with the grace of a woman who had not just had her marriage dissected over chopsticks, and she walked out of that room on her husband's arm without looking back. In the car, Soo-hyun did not speak for a long time. The city moved past the windows. Bibi looked at her own hands in her lap. I'm sorry, he said finally. You always apologize for other people's behavior, she said. Someone has to. She turned to look at him, his profile in the dark of the car, the muscle working in his jaw. I want a baby, Soo-hyun, she said. It was the first time she had said it plainly in 2 years. Not around it, not beside it, straight through it. He turned to look at her. I know, he said. I don't know what's wrong with me. Her voice stayed even. I have done everything they told me to do. I don't understand why it isn't working. He reached across and took her hand. Nothing is wrong with you, he said. She looked back out the window. She did not argue with him, but the truth she could not say out loud was that after 5 years she had started to believe that something was, in fact, deeply wrong. Not medically, not in any way a doctor could find, but something. She just did not yet know what. Sandra Sonami arrived on a Thursday with 2 suitcases, a bag of dried ingredients that customs had examined with considerable suspicion, and the happiness of a mother who knew her daughter was happily married. Bibi met her at arrivals, and Sandra hugged her daughter for a long time without saying anything. Then she held her at arm's length and looked at her face. The eye bags, the tired smile, and blank eyes of Bibi filled her with worry. You've lost weight, Sandra said, eyebrows creasing. I'm fine, Mama. But Sandra knew it was a lie. She silently followed her daughter into the city, watching the new environment with curiosity. When she turned to her daughter and saw her distracted, she knew something was really wrong. Bibi, my daughter, how have you been? Sandra asked her as they got to their apartment. I'm very fine, Mama. And my son-in-law? Bibi smiled sadly. He is away on a business trip but sends his regards too. Sandra nodded as she stepped into the living room and froze. This place smells wrong, she muttered. Bibi sniffed the air but couldn't perceive any smell. Mama, there's nothing smelling, you're just tired. Let me take you to your room first, to freshen up while I prepare dinner. Sandra wanted to argue, 'cause her senses could feel something her daughter wasn't seeing. Yet she stayed quiet and followed her to the guest room. After making sure her mother was settled, Bibi happily unboxed all the things her mother brought and began making her favorite banga soup. By the time she was done, her mother had arrived in the kitchen. My daughter, this soup of yours smells really nice. My stomach is even growling in anticipation, Sandra teased her. Bibi laughed sincerely, the first time in a long time. Please have a seat. I'm almost done, Mama. Sandra sat down by the counter and watched her daughter, yet still felt something was wrong in the house. The energy was evil. After a short while, Bibi brought the soup and pounded yam. They ate happily. Sandra kept telling Bibi everything that had been going on in their neighborhood. Bibi laughed loudly, adding her own inputs. They didn't realize how late it had gotten until her mother yawned tiredly. Sensing it, she checked the time. Ah, Mama, it's almost midnight. We've been talking for hours, she said. And so? I've missed talking to you, my daughter. The house in Nigeria is very lonely without you. When will you give me a grandchild? The moment Bibi heard those words, her face changed drastically. She had expected her mum to raise the topic, but not so soon. Bibi? Her mother immediately noticed her reaction. Did I say something wrong? No, Mama. Bibi forced a smile. We are working on that grandchild. Her words felt like metal in her mouth as she lied to her mother. Sandra couldn't hold it in anymore and crossed her arms. You will tell me exactly what is going on, or else no one will be sleeping tonight. Seeing how serious her mother was, Bibi began explaining her undiagnosed infertility and how it has started affecting her marriage. By the time she was done talking, there were tears running down her cheeks. Instead of consoling her, Sandra stood up and slowly walked through the living room. She went to the kitchen, ran her hand along the walls like she was trying to feel something before she stopped. My daughter, I know you won't believe the thing I'm about to tell you. But if you can listen and do what I tell you, then we will hear the cry of a child soon, Sandra said. Bibi wiped the tears from her eyes, looking at her mother curiously. Mama, don't tell me you are thinking of those fetish and spiritual things. Sandra nodded. I can tell something or someone is fighting you spiritually. If we don't do anything about it, then they will win. Bibi shook her head. There's no witchcraft or voodoo involved, Mama. Stop thinking about things like that. Seeing how Bibi didn't care to listen, Sandra swallowed her words and went to her room. The next 1 week was filled with events and touring soul. The mother-daughter duo enjoyed each other's company, with a huge walk between them. Some nights, she sat with Soo-hyun in the evenings and spoke to him in the unhurried way she spoke to everyone, asking him questions about his childhood and his city, and listening to his answers like they mattered to her personally. Soo-hyun, who was always careful with his words, opened up easily to his mother-in-law. On the last day Sandra was supposed to leave, she forced herself into Bibi's room and sat down. I won't be able to leave if I don't give you this advice, my daughter. Bibi was already dressed up to take her to the airport and was surprised by the sudden action. What do you mean, Mama? She asked. This house has something in it that does not belong here. Sandra turned around. Her voice was completely level. I could feel it from the moment I entered the house. Bibi looked at her mother. What are you talking about? Sandra looked at her daughter for a moment. Then she tapped on the empty spot beside her. Sit, she said. Bibi sat. Sandra held her hands and looked at her daughter. How long have you been trying? She said. 5 years. And the doctors say there is nothing wrong. Nothing they can find, Mama. I already told you. Sandra nodded slowly. She looked in the distance for a long while before turning back to Bibi. My great-grandmother had this problem, she said. She was married for 4 years with no child. The village thought she was cursed. Her husband's family accused her of being barren and even called her a witch. My grandmother would always tell me the pitiful story. She paused. Bibi listened quietly. There is a tradition, Sandra said carefully, one that was older than the church, older than the names we gave things when the missionaries came. The women in our line have used it when medicine could not explain what was happening to their bodies. She looked at her daughter. I did not tell you about it before, because I prayed you would not need it. Mama, I am not finished. Sandra folded her hands. You will go to the river at the edge of the night, when the dark is thinnest. You bring something of value in exchange for what you want, not what you pray for, but what you truly, completely want. You let the water witness it. She paused. And you do it alone. No husband, no bodyguards, alone. Bibi looked at her hands on the table. That's it? She said. That's never it, Sandra said. But that is all I can tell you. The rest comes when you are there. The apartment was quiet. Outside, Seoul moved on in its loud and indifferent way. I'm not sure I believe in that kind of thing, Bibi said. Sandra looked at her daughter with the patience of a woman who has lived long enough to know exactly when something is a lie. Yes, you do. You will, she said. I have told you what I came to tell you. Sandra cupped her daughter's face. The rest is yours to do. She looked at Bibi for a long moment. And listen to me. This apartment, whatever is wrong here, do not let anyone else come and stay in it until you give birth. No one. You understand me? Mama, you're frightening me. Good. Sandra kissed her forehead. Fear is just attention. Pay attention. She picked up her bags and left. Bibi stood in the doorway of the apartment and looked at the hallway wall and said nothing. Despite her lack of belief, she went on a Friday night. She told Soo-hyun she was going for a drive that night. He looked up from his desk and looked at her face, and something in his expression said he knew she was not telling him everything, but he trusted her still. Drive carefully, he said. She agreed. 40 minutes later, she arrived outside the city where the Han River widened and the lights of Seoul thinned to almost nothing, and the bank was dark and empty. She parked and sat in the car for 10 minutes looking at the water. Then she got out. She carried what she had gathered over the 3 days since her mother left, a valuable gift and a piece of paper on which she had written in Yoruba the thing she wanted. She had sat at the kitchen table for an hour before she wrote it, because Sandra had been specific about the difference. The ground at the river's edge was soft under her feet. She knelt down. Bibi was a woman with a master's degree in international business, who had lived in 3 countries and negotiated deals across language barriers without flinching. She was also her grandmother's granddaughter. She was also her mother's daughter. She had no idea what she was doing, but just followed her intuition. She looked at the water and explained her troubles genuinely, before asking for a child. She talked about how much she wanted this, how it had hollowed her slowly from the inside, how she was still standing, but she was tired of standing, how she loved her husband, and she was terrified of what this silence between them was becoming, and how a child felt like the one thing that could restore the thing they were losing. The night stayed quiet, with only the sound of waves in the river. Bibi waited, but did not see anything. She did not hear a voice. But something changed in the air around her that she could not explain. Immediately she felt a bit of relief, not because she believed it would work, but because this was the first time she was pouring out the burdens in her heart. After wiping her tears, she wrapped the gift she prepared in advance with the paper and threw it into the water before driving home. Soo-hyun was asleep when she returned. She showered and got into bed beside him. He turned toward her in his sleep, putting his arm across her waist while she lay in the dark, unable to sleep. She did not tell him what she had done. 3 weeks later, the test sat on the bathroom counter for 3 minutes. Bibi stood with her back against the wall, arms folded, looking at it like it was a time bomb that would determine if she lived or not. For the past 3 weeks, she has not let herself think about it directly. She had gone about her days with the careful neutrality of a woman who has hoped too many times and knows what that cost feels like. The 3 minutes ended. She picked it up. She read it once, she read it again. She set it back down on the counter and put both hands flat on the cool surface of the sink to steady herself. Then she picked up her phone and called Soo-hyun. He answered on the second ring. She could hear the background noise of wherever he was, a meeting room, voices beyond a closed door. "Bibi, come home," she said. A pause. "What's wrong?" "Nothing is wrong." Her voice did not shake. She was proud of that. "Come home. Please." He was there in 25 minutes. She was sitting at the kitchen table with the test face down in front of her when he walked in. He looked at her face and then at the table, and something moved through his expression before he had time to arrange it. He sat across from her, looked at the table, then at her. "Turn it over," she said. He reached across and turned it over. The kitchen was completely silent. Soo-hyun looked at the test for a long time. Bibi watched his face. Watching the exact moment it landed, the way a man processes something he has been carrying the weight of for 5 years suddenly becomes real. He pressed his knuckles briefly against his mouth. His eyes went bright in a way she had only seen twice before, and she had memorized both times. Soo-hyun stood up, came around the table and pulled her into her arms. She held him back just as hard. Neither of them said anything for a long time. There was nothing to say that the holding did not already cover. 5 years, he said finally, into her hair. 5 years, she said. He pulled back and held her face in both hands and looked at her. "Are you all right?" he said. "I am better than all right," she said. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, and hugged her again. She felt the tension that had lived in his shoulders for 2 years, released in a single long exhale, and she understood in that moment how much he had been carrying, how carefully he had been holding it away from her so it would not add to what she was already carrying. Bibi was grateful to have a husband like him. The call came 3 days after Soo-hyun told his mother. Bibi was in the kitchen when she heard Soo-hyun's side of the conversation from the study. She could not hear his mother's words, but she could read the temperature of his responses. The way his sentences got shorter, the pauses. The single long quiet at the end before he said, "I will speak to Bibi," and ended the call. He came to the kitchen doorway. "She wants to come and stay," he said, "to help while you are in the early weeks." Bibi set down what she was holding. "No," she said. Soo-hyun leaned against the doorframe. "Bibi." "No, Soo-hyun." She looked at him directly. "My mother told me before she left that no one should come and stay in this apartment until we understood what was wrong with it." Those were her exact words. "Your mother was talking about." "I know what she was talking about, and I am telling you what she said." Bibi kept her voice level. "Your mother is not coming to stay here, at least until I give birth." He was quiet for a moment. "She is trying to make up." "I know she is trying." Bibi turned back to the counter. "The answer is still no." Soo-hyun called his mother back. Bibi stood in the kitchen and listened to the call go worse than the first one. Hyoju's voice was audible this time, and she was persistent in her demands. Soo-hyun ended the call after a lot of apologizing. He came back to the kitchen and stood behind Bibi. "She's angry," he said. "I know. She says you are keeping her from her grandchild. The child is weeks from being born, and I am just 8 weeks pregnant. Bibi turned around. She can visit. I am not unreasonable. She cannot stay. Ada, Soo-hyun. She looked at him. Please trust me on this one thing. He looked at her for a long moment. Something in his face moved. He nodded once. All right, he said. Hyeju arrived at their apartment the next morning with 2 bags. She did not call ahead. She knocked on the door and stood in the hallway with her luggage at her feet and a smile arranged on her face like a woman who has decided that arriving is the same as being invited. Bibi opened the door. The 2 women looked at each other. I came to help, Hyeju said. Soo-hyun told you we weren't ready for visitors yet, Bibi said. I am not a visitor, I am his mother. You are welcome to come in for tea. Bibi did not move from the doorway. But I'm very sorry, but you are not staying overnight. Hyeju's smile thinned. I have my bags. I can see that. Bibi held the door at its current width. Tea or no tea, those are the options today. Bibi felt so bad talking to her mother-in-law like this, but she wasn't taking any chances. Hyeju never came to stay with them through the 5 years, and now she comes running after hearing Bibi was pregnant. Hyeju looked past her into the apartment. Her eyes moved across the hallway, the walls, the panel. Something shifted in her expression, for just a fraction of a second. Then it was gone. This is not how a daughter-in-law speaks to her husband's mother, she said. You are welcome to take that up with Soo-hyun, Bibi said. See, or the elevator. Hyeju picked up her bags. You will regret this, she said. Her voice was very quiet. That is possible, Bibi said. Goodbye, Hyeju. She closed the door. She stood in the hallway for a moment, with her hand still on the door handle. Then she went back to the kitchen and sat down and placed both hands on the table and kept them there until they were steady. Soo-hyun came home that evening to a voicemail from his mother that lasted 11 minutes. He listened to it in the car before coming upstairs. He came through the door and looked at Bibi on the sofa and sat beside her. She left without coming in, he said. She did. He rubbed his face with both hands. Ada. I'm very sorry, she said. I know it was hard. I know she's your mother. She turned to face him. But I need you to trust me. My mum told me something was wrong in this apartment, and I believe her. Do you know what your mum did when she came? The first thing her eyes did was go to the walls. I saw it. Soo-hyun lowered his hands. What are you saying? He said. I don't know yet, she said, but I will find out. 2 weeks after Hyeju left the doorstep, Bibi walked to the small market 2 streets from their apartment. She went alone, the way she often did in the mornings, a basket over one arm, moving through the familiar stalls. She was 10 weeks pregnant, and the tiredness that came with it sat behind her eyes and in her lower back, but she had always been someone who walked through discomfort rather than around it. She heard a car before she saw it, and turned. The black car was coming directly at her. Not swerving, not braking, coming with full speed. The fruit seller behind her shouted. Someone grabbed her arm. She moved, fast and sideways, her back hitting the edge of a stall as the car passed close enough that she felt the air of it on her face. Then the sound. The car clipped the corner of the intersection, took the turn wrong at that speed, and the physics of it did the rest. A car that had been moving with intention was now folded against the street furniture of a quiet Seoul market morning. People ran toward it. Bibi stood against the stall with her hand over her stomach and her breath coming short and fast. The driver's door opened eventually. Mireille climbed out. Her forehead was bleeding above her left eye, her gold earring torn loose, her perfect clothes destroyed. She looked up and across the market, and her eyes found Bibi standing against the stall. They looked at each other across 20 meters of Market Street. Then 2 police cars turned the corner. Mireille looked at the police. She looked back at Bibi. She straightened up, slowly, and for a moment her face showed everything it had been hiding for 5 years. The entitlement, the fury, the 5 years of watching someone else live a life she had been told was hers. Then the officers reached her, and the moment was over. Soo-hyun received the call within the hour. Bibi was home by then, sitting on the sofa, the basket still on her arm, because she had forgotten to set it down. He came through the door at a speed that was unusual for a man who did not run. He crossed the room, crouched in front of her, and looked at her face with an intensity that had nothing professional in it. "Are you hurt?" he said. "No." "The baby?" "I'm fine." "We're fine." She put her hand on his face. "Soo-hyun, I'm fine." He sat beside her and pulled her into him and held on in the way he had held her when she showed him the test, that unguarded, complete way, and she felt him shake once before he got hold of himself. "Mireille," he said. "Yes." A long silence. "Her family's backing is gone," he said. "After this stunt, I won't let them go scot-free. This was a deliberate attempt on a pregnant woman." He paused. "On my wife." "Will she go to prison?" Bibi said. "Yes," he said. "For a long time, I'll make sure of it." Bibi looked at the basket on her arm and finally took it off and set it on the cushion beside her. "Good," she said. Hyo-ju collapsed the moment Bibi's pregnancy hit 5 months. She had tried various means to come to their house, yet nothing worked. Bibi got so scared at one point and threatened to go to Nigeria, which made Soo-hyun put his foot down and protected his wife. Hyo-ju's housekeeper found her on the sitting room floor at 7 in the morning, conscious but unable to stand, her hands shaking in a way she could not control. She was rushed to the hospital, where they admitted her, ran tests, yet found nothing conclusive. Her blood pressure was elevated, her temperature was fluctuating in ways it should not. The doctors used words like stress and fatigue and exhaustion. Soo-hyun visited her every day. Bibi came on the 3rd day, but sat a bit further away. Hyo-ju refused to look at her directly. On the 5th day, Soo-hyun was there alone when it started. Hyo-ju woke from a shallow sleep and looked at the ceiling and said, without preamble, "I need to tell you something." Soo-hyun set down his phone. She told him about Mireille first. That she had known about the plan with the car, not organized it, she said, but knew what Mireille wanted to do and said nothing. She watched her son's face go through something while she spoke, and she did not stop. Then she told him about the charm. The true reason Bibi never got pregnant. She had visited a shaman before the wedding. He gave her a cloth bag filled with paper charms which was hidden behind the panel in the hallway of their apartment. She had gone back 6 months after the wedding to make sure it was still in place. How she had told herself it was temporary, that she would remove it once Soo-hyun had come to his senses, and how the years had passed and she had never removed it. Soo-hyun sat in the chair beside the bed and was absolutely still. She told him she had loved him, that she had believed she was protecting the dynasty, the 3 generations of alliance, the bloodline she had spent her whole life maintaining, that she had not thought of it as cruelty, that she had thought of it as correction. And Mireille was her choice, not Bibi. 5 years, Soo-hyun whispered in shock. She did not answer. You took 5 years from us. His voice was very quiet. From her. She spent 5 years believing something was wrong with her body. Hyo-ju looked at the ceiling, too ashamed to look at him. She carried that shame, he said, every day, because of something you put in my hallway before she ever set foot in my house. I was protecting. Do not. He stood up. Do not say that word to me today. He called Bibi from the corridor. She came into the room and stood at the foot of the bed. Hyo-ju looked at her and Bibi looked back. The room was very quiet. There is a panel in the hallway, Hyo-ju said. Her voice had lost its arrogance. Behind it, There's a small bag. Remove it. Bibi looked at her for a long moment. I already know, she said. Hyoju blinked. My mother knew the day she walked into that apartment. Bibi folded her hands in front of her. She told me something was wrong in the walls. I felt it when I went to the river. The ritual I did not just open a door. It found what was blocking it. She paused. I found the charm 2 days after you visited us and removed it. I was waiting to understand who put it there. The room was completely silent. Now I know, Bibi said. She looked at the woman in the bed, the woman who had stood at their wedding and told 300 people that her daughter-in-law's womb might be inadequate. The woman who had spent 5 years quietly, methodically, ensuring that her words would be right. My daughter. Bibi did not raise her voice. I am not your daughter. My husband may forgive you, she said, because that is who he is, and I love him for it. She picked up her bag from the chair. But I want you to understand something. I am not him. She walked to the door. Bibi, Hyoju said. She stopped. She did not turn around. I am sorry, Hyoju said. It came out smaller than anything she had ever said, stripped of the register, the authority, the careful weight she put behind her words. Bibi stood at the door for a moment. I know, she said. She left. Soo-hyun found her in the car park. She was sitting in the passenger seat of the car, with the door open, her feet on the ground, looking at the concrete floor of the hospital basement. He knelt in front of her. It was not a comfortable position, but he did it anyway. She told you, Bibi said. Yes. All of it. All of it. The car park was quiet. A lift opened somewhere. Footsteps crossed and faded. Are you all right? He said. She thought about it properly before answering. I removed the charm myself, she said. I found a woman in Itaewon, a Korean mudang who also knew the Yoruba tradition, because my mother said the removal had to honor both sides of what the house contained. We did it together the week after I found it. She looked at her hands. I didn't tell you because I wasn't ready to explain everything I had done to get pregnant. The river, the ritual, what my mother told me. Soo-hyun listened. I wanted to give you the baby first, she said, before the explanation, because I knew the explanation was going to be complicated. I would have listened, he said. I know, she finally looked at him. I know you would have. I just needed to do some of it alone. He looked back at her, the grey at his temples, the line between his brows, the face she had been learning for 6 years and was not finished learning. What do you need from me now? He said. She thought about that too. I need you to handle your mother in whatever way you are going to handle her, she said. I cannot tell you what that looks like. I cannot tell you to cut her off or keep her. She is yours to decide. And you? He asked. And I will decide on my own, she said. He nodded. He understood the difference. I forgive her, he said. I'm not there yet with what I feel about what she did, but I will be. I know myself. Bibi looked at him. I won't, she said. I want to be honest with you about that. I don't know if I will ever be able to forgive her. 5 years, Soo-hyun. 5 years of thinking it was me. She put her hand on her stomach, the beautiful curve of her protruding stomach. I need more time than you to get anywhere near forgiving that. That is fair, he said. You're not going to tell me to try harder, she said. No, he said. I'm going to stay with you because I promise to love you for the rest of our lives. She looked at him. Something pulled at the corner of her mouth. Your trousers, she said. They were expensive, he said, standing up. She laughed. A real one, short and sudden, the kind that comes from somewhere you weren't expecting. He watched her laugh, and the expression on his face was not something he tried to arrange. He took her hand. Let's go home, he said. She took her feet off the ground, and he closed the passenger door and walked around to the driver's side. She watched him through the windscreen as he came around, and she thought about 5 years. About the notebook in the drawer. About standing at the window looking at the river that had eventually given her back something she had stopped fully believing in. About a man who had refused a council motion and a rival family's pressure and 3 generations of dynasty expectation and his own mother's engineering, and had come home every night and found her in the kitchen or at the window and stayed. She thought about the word forgiveness, what it meant for him, what it would mean for her when she arrived at it, in her own time, on her own terms. She was not there yet. The wound was still too fresh, but she was in the car. Their car, going to their apartment, where a charm no longer hung in the walls, and a child was growing where 5 years of obstruction had been, and the city outside would keep moving the way it always did, indifferent and bright. Soo-hyun got in. He started the engine. He pulled out of the park without looking at the sat-nav, because he always knew where home was. Her husband forgave people. She was still deciding. But she had time now. They both did. Now tell me, my darlings, would you forgive such a woman, or hold on to this grudge for a long time?